After months apart, the moment we've all been waiting for has finally arrived. Amy and Ty face each other again, but the questions remain: can love survive the secrets and the heartbreak of the past? This is the emotional confrontation that could change everything on Heartland forever. The sun dips low behind the rolling hills of Heartland, casting long shadows over the familiar ranch that has seen so much love, loss, and growth. The wind whispers through the tall grass, carrying the scent of hay and horses, grounding the scene in a place of home and history. For Amy, the ranch is both a sanctuary and a reminder of the moments she shared with Ty, moments filled with laughter, challenges, and quiet understanding. But today, the calm of Heartland feels fragile, tense, as if the land itself senses the storm about to arrive. Amy moves slowly across the main field, her steps deliberate, each one echoing the weight of unspoken emotions. She pauses by the fence, hands gripping the wood tightly, staring into the distance as if searching for answers in the horizon. Her heart is heavy, filled with a mixture of hope and fear. The months without Ty have left her with questions she can no longer ignore. Why did he leave? What has he been hiding? And can she trust him again? Every memory of him, the soft laughter during early morning rides, quiet conversations under starlit skies, surfaces in her mind, making it impossible to shake the anticipation building in her chest. The barn stands nearby, its wooden doors slightly ajar, creaking with the gentle wind. It has always been a place of work, but also a place where Amy and Ty shared private moments, where emotions ran raw and unfiltered. Today, the barn is more than just wood and nails. It becomes a symbol of confrontation, a stage for hearts laid bare. Shadows stretch across the ground as the sun continues its descent, painting the scene in warm hues of orange and gold. Yet beneath the beauty, there is a tension, quiet anticipation that something pivotal is about to unfold. The horses in the paddock shift nervously, their ears flicking toward the barn, sensing the emotional charge in the air. Even the animals seem aware that this day is different, that a turning point is approaching. Amy watches them for a moment, drawing a shaky breath, her fingers brushing the horse's mane as if seeking comfort. But the peace is fleeting, and her thoughts drift back to Ty. She wonders about the changes in him, about the secrets he may carry, and about whether the man she remembers is the same one she will see today. The camera, or, in the faceless video, the perspective lingers on details: the worn fence, the sunlight glinting off a horseshoe, Amy's hand trembling slightly as she adjusts her hair. These small moments speak volumes about the quiet storm brewing inside her. She's caught between hope and caution, love and fear, longing and restraint. The ranch, with all its familiar corners and pathways, becomes a mirror of her inner world, beautiful, yet complicated, serene, yet unsettled. Footsteps echo from the gravel path leading to the barn. Amy freezes, sensing movement. Her pulse quickens, each beat a reminder of the vulnerability she feels. This is the moment she has dreaded and longed. For in equal measure, Ty's presence is near, though he is still unseen, and the air thickens with anticipation. The shadows of the barn deepen as someone approaches, and Amy's breath catches. Every instinct tells her to prepare. Every memory tells her to hope. She steels herself, readying her heart for the confrontation that will decide so much of their future. The wind picks up, rustling the loose papers on a nearby table and tossing hay into the air. The sound is almost like a prelude, the calm before a storm that has been brewing quietly for months. Amy's eyes scan the barn door, her mind racing through the possible scenarios of what is about to happen. Will Ty apologize? Will old wounds be reopened? Will they find a way to bridge the gap that has grown between them? And then finally, the first figure appears at the barn's entrance. Ty steps into the fading light, his face unreadable, yet charged with emotion. The distance between them feels immense, yet impossible to ignore. The ranch seems to hold its breath as the two of them stand apart, the space between filled with months of unspoken words, unresolved feelings, and the shared history that refuses to be forgotten. Amy's heart races. Ty's eyes search hers, and in that instant, the world narrows down to just the two of them.
Oh.
Everything else fades: the horses, the barn, the setting sun, as if Heartland itself is pausing to witness what is about to unfold. Every detail counts: the tense tilt of Amy's shoulders, the hesitant step Ty takes forward, the rustle of his coat, the faint catch in his voice as he speaks. The confrontation isn't just about words. It's about the weight of everything unsaid, the emotions that linger in the spaces between sentences, the vulnerability that neither of them can hide. For the audience, this moment sets the stage for an emotional journey, pulling viewers into a narrative that is as heart-wrenching as it is hopeful. Months have passed since Ty's sudden absence, leaving a void in Amy's life that no amount of work on the ranch could fill. Heartland, though familiar and comforting, now carries echoes of moments that once brought her joy. The laughter they shared, the quiet nights in the barn, and the early morning rides across the hills all feel like memories captured in a time that might never return. Every corner of the ranch reminds her of his favorite spot by the old oak tree, the worn saddle that still rests in the tack room, and the faint scent lingering in the barn that instantly brings him back to her. Amy has tried to move forward. She has poured herself into caring for the horses, training the younger ones, and tending to the ranch's daily life. But no matter how busy her hands are, her heart remains restless. She thinks about the conversations that never happened, the promises left unspoken, and the questions that have gnawed at her since he left. Why did you go? She asks herself silently. Why did you leave without explanation? The ranch has become a sanctuary of reflection, a place where her emotions unfold in the quiet moments before dawn and the fading light at sunset. The past season had been full of tension and subtle heartbreak. Ty's absence wasn't just physical, it was emotional, a missing presence in the life Amy had built and shared with him. Friends noticed the change in her, even if she tried to hide it. Heartland itself seemed to mirror her inner struggle. The fields, though lush, seemed quieter, the barns more hollow, and the horses more sensitive, almost reflecting the anxiety she carried. In her mind, Ty's laughter still echoes, his steady voice still advises her, and the warmth of his hand is still remembered. These memories are bittersweet, a constant reminder of what was lost and what could be regained. Amy's emotions are tangled. Love battles with anger, hope wrestles with doubt, and forgiveness hovers just out of reach. She remembers the last time she saw Ty, the hurried goodbyes, the tension thick in the air, and the unresolved feelings that hung between them like a storm cloud refusing to break. Every day without him has been a test of patience, endurance, and emotional resilience. She's learned to stand strong, yet the moment of his return brings a surge of vulnerability she cannot deny. The ranch is alive with reminders of their shared past. The paddocks where they trained horses together, the barn where late-night conversations turned into quiet moments of understanding, the porch where they would watch the sunset teach place is a chapter in their story. As she moves through these familiar spaces, Amy feels both the pain of absence and the anticipation of what is to come. Every creak of the barn door, every whisper of wind through the trees, every shadow cast across the field seems to carry a message. Ty is back, and the time for confrontation has arrived. Ty's absence has also left Amy questioning herself. Could she have done something differently? Should she have waited longer, spoken sooner, or forgiven faster? These questions swirl in her mind like leaves in the wind, leaving her unsettled. The emotional weight of the past months is heavy, pressing down on her shoulders, but it also prepares her for the confrontation she knows is inevitable. She is both anxious and determined, vulnerable and strong, a mix of emotions that makes her human, relatable, and ready for the drama about to unfold. The audience is drawn into this inner turmoil. Faceless storytelling allows them to see through Amy's eyes, the empty spaces where laughter once lived, the subtle details of the ranch holding memories, and the quiet moments where hope fights against despair. Visual cues like a lingering close-up of her hands on the fence, the soft rustle of hay as she moves through the barn, or a solitary tear falling highlight her emotional state without ever showing her face. The tension builds naturally, giving viewers a visceral sense of anticipation. The stage is now set. Amy's emotions are raw, unfiltered, and ready to collide with Ty's return. Every flashback, every remembered smile, every moment of longing has led to this point.
The ranch is
No longer just a home, it is a witness, a silent observer of the love, pain, and confrontation that is about to unfold. The audience is left holding their breath, waiting for the inevitable meeting, feeling Amy's longing, her fear, and her cautious hope as if it were their own. Finally, the scene narrows to a single frame, Amy standing in the barn doorway, her silhouette framed against the golden light of the setting sun. The wind brushes past her, carrying the faint sound of approaching footsteps. Every heartbeat feels louder, every second stretches longer, and every shadow seems to hint at Ty's imminent arrival. This is the calm before the storm, the quiet before the emotional confrontation that will change everything. The ranch is quiet. Now, almost too quiet, as if the land itself is holding its breath. The golden light of late afternoon stretches across the fields, casting long, soft shadows over the barns and paddocks. Every sound, the creak of a gate, the rustle of leaves, the distant clip-clop of hooves, seems amplified, echoing through the empty spaces. Amy's heart races with every subtle noise, each one stirring the mix of hope and fear she has carried for months. She knows he is coming, and yet the unknown of his return keeps her on edge. The wind shifts suddenly, carrying with it the faintest sound of movement from the gravel path that leads to the barn. Amy pauses, holding her breath, her fingers tightening. Around the fence post, her mind spins through the possibilities. What will he say? How will she respond? Can she trust him after all this time? Every memory of Ty, the moments of laughter, the late-night conversations, the quiet support he gave her floods back, mingling with the pain of his absence. The ranch, familiar and safe, now feels like the stage for a pivotal moment in their shared story. Ty's return is not just physical, it carries emotional weight. The audience can sense it without seeing the details of his face. Shadow appears at the far edge of the field, just enough to hint at movement. The camera, or in faceless storytelling, the perspective lingers on the shifting figure, drawing viewers into the suspense. Slow, careful steps approach the barn, each one deliberate, each one measured, as if Ty himself feels the tension in the air. The emotional charge between him and Amy can be felt even in silence. A silent storm of anticipation and unresolved feelings. Amy's breathing quickens. Every instinct tells her to stay calm, to prepare herself. But the months of waiting have built an ache in her chest that refuses to be ignored. She moves slightly, adjusting her stance, her eyes scanning the horizon, searching for even the faintest hint of Ty's expression. Her emotions are raw and unfiltered. Hope mingles with doubt. Love battles with fear, and the questions she has carried for months bubble to the surface. Why now? She asks herself. After all this time, why return? The answers are unknown, and the tension grows. From the shadows, a familiar voice, or the echo of one can almost be imagined. Aceless storytelling allows the audience to feel Ty's presence through subtle cues. The sound of his coat brushing against the barn door, the crunch of gravel beneath his boots, the faint sway of his silhouette as he steps closer. These small details build suspense, letting viewers imagine him as much as see him, keeping the focus on emotion rather than visuals. Every movement carries weight because every step brings them closer to confrontation. The ranch seems to respond. To his approach, horses stir nervously in their stalls, sensing the tension in the air. The barn doors creak ever so slightly, swaying in rhythm with the approaching footsteps. The air carries the scent of the earth, hay, and horses, mixing with an almost tangible feeling of anticipation. Yes. Amy's senses sharpen. Every sound, every shadow, every shift in the light signals his presence. She feels it in her chest, a fluttering of nerves, a surge of emotion she cannot contain. In these moments, time seems to stretch. The distance between Amy and Ty feels both vast and insignificant. The months of separation, the unanswered questions, the longing, and the fear all converge. In the space between them, it's a ranch, once a place of comfort, now feels like a stage where emotions will be laid bare. The audience senses this tension, feeling Amy's nervous energy, the pull of memory, and the weight of anticipation. And then, just as the sun begins to dip behind the hills, the first real glimpse appears. A shadow moves past the barn's edge. Closer than before, Amy's heartbeat accelerates, echoing in her ears, matching the rhythm of the approaching figure. She can feel Ty's presence even before seeing him clearly. A magnetic pull, drawing her into the confrontation she has both dreaded and longed for. Every detail counts. The sway of his coat, the slow rise of dust from his boots, the faint silhouette against the fading light. This is the calm before the storm. The audience feels the tension, knowing that the emotional confrontation is imminent. Ty's return is no longer a rumor or a memory. It is real, tangible, and fraught with possibility. Every step he takes toward Amy carries the weight of months of absence. Every gesture is loaded with emotion. And every second stretches longer as viewers wait for the first words to be spoken. The barn, the ranch, and the surrounding fields seem to lean in, silently witnessing the moment. The setting sun casts long shadows across Amy and Ty, emphasizing the distance and the tension that separates them. The air feels thick, heavy with the anticipation of confession, confrontation, and perhaps reconciliation. Faceless storytelling lets the audience feel the emotions in the space itself, the rustling leaves, the shifting shadows, and the sound of approaching footsteps, all building toward the inevitable collision of hearts and words. Amy takes a deep breath, steadying herself, knowing that the moment of reckoning is near. Ty is here, and there is no turning back. The months apart, the unspoken words, the lingering pain, and the fragile hope all converge in the space between them. The audience, holding their breath, senses the intensity, the stakes, and the emotional weight of the moment. The ranch is quiet, but it is alive with emotion, ready to witness the confrontation that will define the future of Amy and Ty's story. Amy stands at the edge of the barn doorway, the fading sunlight casting long shadows across her face and the fields beyond. Her heart pounds in her chest, a rapid rhythm that matches the flurry of thoughts swirling in her mind. Every step Ty takes toward her feels like it carries the weight of months of absence. Months of unanswered questions, months of longing. She feels a tug-of-war inside herself, a mix of hope, fear, love, and anger that makes her pause, unsure if she is ready to face him yet. The silence between them is heavy. It is a quiet that speaks louder than words could. Every sound, the distant clatter of a horse, the wind rustling the tall grass, the creak of the barn doors magnifies her awareness of the moment. Amy's mind races, remembering the times they shared, the laughter they offered each other, the quiet comfort of simply being together. And alongside these memories comes the sting of pain, the nights spent alone. The empty space beside her in the barn, the uncertainty that never seemed to fade. She asks herself questions she can barely voice. Will he apologize? Has he changed? Can she trust him again? Each question feels heavy in her chest, pressing against the fragile hope she clings to. Her hands tremble slightly as they rest on the wooden railing, and she feels the familiar flutter of nerves that only comes with facing someone you love and fear at the same time. Every fiber of her being is alert, sensing the approach of a man who has been missing not just in body, but in heart. The months apart have changed her in subtle ways. Amy has grown stronger, more independent, yet the vulnerability she feels now reminds her of the depth of her love for Ty. She remembers the moments of reassurance, quiet gestures that meant more than words ever could, and the way his presence made the ranch feel alive. And now, as she stands alone with only the wind and the fading sunlight around her, she realizes just how much she has missed him. The anticipation is almost unbearable. Her emotions swirl unpredictably. A wave of anger surfaces, anger at the silence, the absence, and the secrets that have kept them apart. Then, just as quickly, a wave of hope rises, imagining his smile, the sound of his voice, the possibility that things could still be repaired. She feels fragile, yet determined, ready to demand answers, yet longing for reassurance. Every heartbeat is a reminder of the emotional stakes. Every breath, a struggle between restraint and the desire to run into his arms. Amy's gaze drifts to the horizon where the shadows stretch long across the ranch. In that moment, she feels the weight of time, the months that have passed without resolution, and the uncertainty of what comes next. She also feels the pull of love that refuses to fade, the memories that refuse to be erased, and the deep connection that has always bound her to Ty. The ranch becomes a mirror of her emotions, calm on the surface, yet swirling with tension underneath. She recalls moments of tension and tenderness from their past. The quiet nights spent talking in, the barn, the early morning rides across the fields, the way Ty always knew when she needed comfort. These memories are bittersweet, reminding her of both the joy they shared and the pain of separation. The audience, watching faceless visuals, can feel the gravity of her emotional state through subtle cues: a trembling hand, a tightening grip. On the railing, a slow exhale that carries the weight of her feelings. Amy braces herself. She knows that the words spoken in the next moments could change everything. She's caught between fear and hope, longing and self-protection, love and anger. The ranch, with its familiar sights and sounds, seems to hold its breath with her. Even the horses seem to sense the tension, moving quietly, ears flicking toward the barn, as if anticipating the storm of emotion about to unfold. Every instinct tells her to stay strong, yet every memory tells her to open her heart. She feels the mixture of excitement and dread, knowing that Ty's presence will force her to confront not only him, but the emotions she has kept buried for months. The audience senses this internal struggle, feeling her nervous anticipation, her lingering pain, and the fragile hope that keeps her rooted in place. Finally, Amy's eyes lock on the barn entrance. The faint shadow of Ty appears again, closer this time, his movements deliberate. Her pulse quickens, her hands tremble slightly, and her breath catches. She is ready partially, at least, to face the man who has been absent from her life, the man who holds so much of her heart. Every second stretches, every heartbeat echoes, every detail: the swaying barn door, the rustling wind. The long shadows contributes to the emotional weight of this pivotal moment. The tension is almost unbearable. The ranch feels alive, the silence around her heavy with expectation, and Amy is on the edge of an emotional precipice. She knows that when Ty finally speaks, when they finally face each other fully, the emotions she has held for so long will flood to the surface. Hope, fear, love, and doubt all will collide in a moment that promises to be unforgettable. The barn door swings slowly, its creaking in the evening breeze, signaling the final moments before Amy and Ty stand face to face. The golden light of sunset bathes the ranch in warm, fading tones, casting long shadows that stretch across the paddocks and fields. Everything seems paused. The horses stop grazing. The wind softens. Even the distant trees seem still, as if the world itself recognizes the gravity of the moment about to unfold. Amy's hands grip the wooden beam of the barn doorway, her knuckles white from tension. Her posture is rigid, a reflection of the nervous energy coursing through her. Her breath comes in shallow, controlled bursts, each one an attempt to steady the whirlwind of emotions inside her. Months of longing, fear, anger, and hope have led to this single instant. She can hear the faint crunch of gravel beneath Ty's boots, each step closer magnifying the intensity of the moment. From the shadows, Ty emerges slowly, his silhouette framed against the fading sun. He pauses for a moment, as if measuring the distance between them, not just physically, but emotionally. There is a heaviness in his shoulders, a subtle tension in his posture, and a hesitancy in his step, evidence of the internal struggle that mirrors Amy's own. Though faceless, his presence is powerful, filled with the unspoken weight of months apart and unresolved feelings. The space between them feels enormous. What seems like a few feet is actually a chasm of emotion built over months of separation. The audience can feel the tension without hearing a single word. Amy's trembling hands, the tight set of her jaw, the faint glimmer of moisture in her eyes. Ty's slow, deliberate movements, and the quiet shifting of his weight convey hesitation, remorse, and the silent plea for understanding. Every micro-movement speaks louder than dialogue could, establishing the emotional stakes of the confrontation. The barn itself seems to add to the atmosphere. The wooden beams cast shadows across the floor, creating a visual metaphor for the emotional barriers that separate Amy and Ty. Dust motes float lazily in the golden light, drifting through the air, like fragments of memory, reminders of moments shared, moments lost, and moments yet to come. The ranch is no longer just a home. It is a witness to a pivotal chapter in their story. Amy's gaze meets the empty space where Ty will soon stand fully visible. She swallows hard, forcing herself to breathe steadily, though her chest tightens with anticipation. Every instinct tells her to protect herself, to keep her walls up, but every memory of Ty tugs at her heart, urging her forward. Her emotions are raw and fragile, a delicate balance of hope, fear, love, and resentment. The audience can feel this in the small, faceless details. The slight tremor of her hands, the tense line of her shoulders, the hesitant tilt of her head. Ty steps closer, the sound of his boots crunching gravel becoming louder, more pronounced. Each step seems deliberate, carrying both caution and purpose. He doesn't rush, he doesn't speak. The silence is deafening, loaded with the weight of months apart. It is the kind of silence that forces both characters and viewers to feel every heartbeat, every lingering doubt, and every unspoken word. The audience senses that when the first words are finally exchanged, the emotional release will be powerful and transformative. The tension is compounded by their surroundings. The barn smells of hay, leather, and the lingering traces of life that they have both contributed to over the years. These sensory details, subtle but impactful, enhance the realism of the moment, allowing the audience to feel fully immersed. Even the fading sunlight seems purposeful, highlighting the contours of the space and the distance between Amy and Ty, creating a visual metaphor for the gap they must bridge with words, emotions, and vulnerability. Amy's internal dialogue becomes almost tangible. She reminds herself to stay calm, to prepare for explanations, apologies, and perhaps even confessions. She anticipates Ty's approach, wondering what he will say first, how he will justify the months of absence, and whether he will ask for forgiveness. The tension is not just external, light is deeply internal, a battle between caution and desire, resentment and love. Finally, they are within a few feet of each other. The golden sunlight catches the edges of the barn beams and the dust floating in the air, creating a halo of anticipation around the space they now share. Amy stands tall, her emotions barely contained, while Ty's presence radiates both vulnerability and determination. The world seems to pause entirely, focusing solely on this moment, the calm before the storm, the pause before the first words are spoken the instant before months of emotion pour out in a confrontation that could change everything. The audience can feel the weight of the moment. In every detail, the tension in Amy's stance, the measured steps of Ty, the creak of the barn doors, the soft rustling of hay, the fading light, and the silence that envelops them. Every visual cue, every subtle gesture, every heartbeat conveys that this confrontation is more than just words. It is a collision of hearts, a test of trust, and a moment that will define the path forward for both of them. The stage is set. The tension is at its peak. Amy and Ty are poised on the edge of revelation, ready for the confrontation that will finally bring their emotions into the open. Every element, the ranch, the barn, the sunset, the silence works together to make this faceless scene as emotionally charged and immersive as possible. The audience waits, breathless, knowing that the next moment will be unforgettable. The air between Amy and Ty feels thick, almost tangible.
Ow.
Every heartbeat, every breath, and every subtle movement carries the weight of months of separation. Ty stops just a few feet away, his silhouette framed by the fading sunlight and the warm shadows of the barn. He doesn't rush forward. He knows that this moment isn't just about crossing physical distance, it's about bridging the gap between their hearts, the chasm of emotions that has grown during his absence. Amy takes a steadying breath, her hands still gripping the barn. Railing, she can feel the tension coiling in her chest, ready to spring. The emotions she has carried for months, fear, longing, anger, all threaten to spill over. She waits, almost daring Ty to speak first, while internally preparing herself for whatever may come. The silence is electric, filled with the anticipation of the first words, the subtle tremor of unresolved feelings, and the invisible thread of connection that still binds them together. Finally, Ty speaks. His voice is calm but carries the weight of sincerity and regret. Every word he utters is measured, deliberate, filled with the emotions he has kept bottled up. Though his face isn't shown, the audience can sense the tension and vulnerability in his tone. Amy's body language mirrors her internal struggle, a stiffening of her shoulders, a tightening of her jaw, a flicker of uncertainty in her posture. The dialogue doesn't need to be fully visualized. Faceless storytelling allows subtle cues like posture, pauses, and gestures to carry the weight of emotion. Amy's response is cautious but heartfelt. She doesn't step forward immediately. Instead, she measures her words, balancing honesty with self-protection. The audience feels the weight of every syllable, the unspoken questions lurking beneath each statement. Her emotions, hurt, hope, anger, love are palpable through subtle movements. A trembling hand, a step backward, a slight pause as she swallows. These small gestures make the confrontation feel real, immersive, and deeply human. The dialogue between them is punctuated by pauses that speak louder than words. The silence stretches, allowing the audience to feel the tension, imagine the unspoken thoughts, and experience the emotional gravity of the moment. Each pause carries the weight of months apart, of memories shared and lost, and of the fragile hope that still lingers between them. The faceless storytelling emphasizes these pauses through lingering shots of the barn, swaying dust motes, and the soft rustling of hay. Ty's voice breaks slightly at a critical moment, betraying the vulnerability he usually hides. He admits mistakes, expresses regret, and offers words that Amy has been longing to hear. Though we do not see his facial expressions, the faceless medium conveys emotion through subtle visual cues. The shifting of his weight, the slow exhale, the hesitation in his hands, the slight bow of his head.